Hello, and thank you for joining us this Monday, January 3rd.
From Church Militant Studios, this is the Church Militant Evening News.
Hello, and thank you for joining us this Monday, January 30th. I'm Hunter Bradford, along with James Fedua, here with Catholic News and Context. Tonight, a heterodox bishop is calling out other unfaithful bishops in the Rhineland. You'll hear why sex abuse victims aren't happy with the settlement offer. And right after the passing of a beloved prelate, Australian bishops and laity want to go woke. Leading us off tonight, Pope Francis is using a get-out clause to circumvent the Church's prohibition of sodomy. On Friday, the Pope penned a handwritten note to Jesuit homosexualist Father James Martin qualifying the prescription of homosexual acts. Francis wrote, "Of course, one must also consider the circumstances which may decrease or eliminate fault." The Pope added, "This is to speak of the matter of sin. But we know well that Catholic morality not only takes into consideration the matter, but also evaluates freedom and intention, and this for every kind of sin." Father Martin emphasized the apparent exemption in his tweet, noting how Francis had clarified his recent comments on homosexuality in the words, "One must consider the circumstances." Papal biographer Austin Ivory tweeted, "This is how church teaching develops. The unfortunate phrase intrinsically disordered, source of so much hurt and misunderstanding, and de facto abandoned long ago, is now officially junked."
And here to expand on this is our Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomez. So, Jules, this seems pretty big, but I think the big question here is why did Pope Francis write a personal letter to Father James Martin?
Good evening, James. Remember, last week, Pope Francis did an extended interview with the left-wing Associated Press. And in that interview, which was rather ambiguous from start to finish, he did make one remark where he said that homosexuality is a sin. Now, that apparently resonated around the world and caused a huge degree of offense. And James Martin rushed back to ask him, "Are you really saying that homosexuality is a sin?" Now, obviously, the question is the orientation a sin, which it is not, according to Catholic teaching, or are the acts sinful? And that is presumably why James Martin asked Pope Francis to clarify, but we know that there is much more, because he's pushing his own agenda.
Jules, how are other people responding to this letter from Pope Francis?
Well, on the one hand, there are people like James Martin and Austin Ivory, the Pope's biographer, who are using the Pope's response to push the homosexual agenda, saying that, well, we told you so. There's nothing, it's not sinful, and kind of mitigating circumstances could be, they're not saying this, well, if you're born a homosexual, you can't really be held responsible for that if you indulge in homosexual acts. And then, of course, there are Pope-splainers who are desperately trying to explain that he didn't really mean that, but what he was saying is completely in line with Catholic ethical teaching. But the whole problem is there is no clarity, and Pope Francis is beginning to sound more and more like a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal.
Absolutely, yeah, Jules, it's impossible to know exactly what he's saying. I guess those people trying to interpret it and bend words and do whatever they can to try and make sense of it, good luck to them, I guess. But Jules, thank you so much for coming on and explaining this more to us.
Thank you, James.
God bless.
Thank you, gentlemen. A heterodox German prelate known for pushing modernism in the church is actually blasting some of his brother German bishops. Cardinal Walter Kasper made a statement on Thursday, calling some of the tendencies of German prelates to resist the authority of Rome trickery. He said, "The resistance to Roman writing or its tricky reinterpretation and circumvention inevitably lead, contrary to all well-intentioned protestations, to the brink of schism and plunge the people of God in Germany into an even deeper crisis."
Two high-ranking cardinals are trying to clarify the purpose of the Synod on synodality. Cardinal Mario Grech and Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich Leaders of Pope Francis's infamous Synod on Synodality are insisting the process focuses on the people of God. Cardinal George Pell, who passed away recently, had this to say regarding the global listening process initiation by the pontiff. He said, "The Catholic Synod of Bishops is now busy constructing what they think of as God's dream of synodality. Unfortunately, this divine dream has developed into a toxic nightmare."
Father Joseph Ilo from Star of the Sea Church in San Francisco isn't confident in the bishop's National Eucharistic Revival. Here's what he said in his homily from Sunday of last week.
The bishops accordingly have launched a Eucharistic revival to regain faith in the Eucharist. But friends, it will prove largely ineffective if the Holy Mass continues to be offered in our parishes improperly, as if it were just a nice social gathering rather than if our lives depended on it, which they do.
He's not wrong. Father Ilo also stressed the importance of reconciliation, and that respect for the Eucharist means receiving it with a clean soul in a state of grace.
We need the sacrament of reconciliation. That's another thing that the Eucharistic revival will fail at. If we don't have confessions before every Mass, we will not believe in the Eucharist.
And in New York, the Diocese of Rockville Center is making an offer to the hundreds of sex abuse victims currently suing the diocese. $200 million is the settlement offer from the diocese located on Long Island to over 600 victims as a group. The victims and their lawyers are calling this offer way too low. That's because a week ago they proposed over $400 million, about double this current offer. Rockville Center filed for bankruptcy in October 2020. On Friday last week, the diocese wrote in a statement saying, "The diocese believes the plan is the best means to efficiently and effectively pave the way for compensating survivors and emerging from bankruptcy."
On the same day of conservative Australian Cardinal George Pell's funeral, some leftist fake Catholic groups are hoping to change the one true church. At St. Mary's Cathedral in Sydney on Thursday, Australia's Catholic Coalition for Church Reform will come together in support of Pope Francis's desire for an inclusive church. The group wants to do away with the church's patriarchal leadership, the same one divinely instituted by Jesus Christ, the second person of the Most Holy Trinity.
A prelate in Sri Lanka is speaking the truth about what the church needs, and it involves the laity having a fighting spirit. At a ceremony last week, Cardinal Malcolm Ranjith preached, "Today we no longer need such sacristy Catholics. We need a laity who are ready to get down to the streets and fight for justice and do what is right for society." He went on to say, "The church needs Christians who will commit themselves for Christ and follow his example. We do not need spoon-fed babies." Awesome words there. When we come back, a faithful Texas prelate slams this city for passing pro-murder legislation, and Canadians are honoring the one-year anniversary of the trucker protest. Stay tuned, all that and more up next.
Thank you for watching the first half of Church Militant Evening News.
If you would like to watch the rest of today's episode, please click the link in the description, and we'll see you at churchmilitant.com. God love you.